or architecture, transportation, study plan, there's parking and traffic, economic development, and then budgeting, fiscal oversight, in terms of, you mentioned specifically tax.
Yep, and then economic development.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great, and Steve Warren.
Thank you.
5 minutes.
I was thinking about how to organize my thoughts, and given that it's late, I will try not to take about 5 minutes. But I'll start with a couple that I didn't necessarily pick, but I think are important. By trade, I'm a lawyer, and as a lawyer, I never met a policy I didn't like. So I was thinking about
I would hold that.
I like to have policies around things, so I think about things like TIDs, the codes, the ordinances. I don't necessarily know that that's something that I would put in my top 2, but I think all those policies are important to keep in mind as we move forward, because you really want to understand, why you're making the decisions you're making and what the criteria around the decisions that you're making are as well. Another thing that I thought about a lot, and wouldn't necessarily be in my top 2, but I also think it's something that echoed throughout this group, the parking, transportation, traffic. I realize that it's a very difficult problem to solve, which is why it's something you've heard about for decades now around Shorewood. And maybe it starts with the traffic study. Maybe we don't make it the goal to completely solve it over the year, but it certainly would be nice to at least take steps in the direction there. One of the things I would prioritize is budget. I think a lot of the things that have been said, Trustee Menta, Trustee Carpenter, others, are that I think our duty as trustees is to safeguard finances, to watch the property taxes, to make sure that we spend money wisely, that we make sure that we spend money appropriately. So that's a very important bucket for me. The other thing, and I don't know if this, I can't see the buckets, so I don't know if I'm just creating buckets here, but
I was getting asked to be in the middle of the room, actually, in this space.
my eyes are so bad that I still can't read them. But,
I didn't know how many there would be, so I started small.
This probably falls into environmental and things like that, but just thinking about village infrastructure and some of the things that we need to update as a village, some of the things that we need to make sure are sound as a village, due to the fact that this is an old village. Some of the initiatives around some of our aging infrastructure, I would also prioritize. The other thing that hits close to home for me, and I'd be hopeful, again, this is echoing what some in the room have said throughout the night, that this could run kind of on a parallel track to some of the bigger things. I'm calling it community outreach. And by community outreach, I mean several of the things that we've heard from several of the initiatives from the committees and the trustees. I think about all the diversity things that we've heard, be it through the village, be it through kind of hiring vendors, be it through other things. I think about the town halls and communicating with our constituents and really bringing them into the loop and having them kind of understand what the village is doing and the direction the village is taking. And I think about things like articles, things like the outreach there. So I think that community outreach is another thing I would like to see prioritized. But again, I don't see it as a big priority. I don't see it as a priority per se that I see it as something that we can run in parallel to the other kind of big ticket items that we're talking about. But I do see it as very, very important. But those would be my thoughts.
Just to reiterate, another comment for just, could that be just a win? It's a small thing just integrated into what we do, but just a win to be having in parallel. So something to think about and discuss. I know it's mentioned already.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, community outreach is kind of at the center of what we need to do, but it's something that I think we can do. I don't think it's going to be a costly item, nor do I think it takes a lot of time, which is why I think we can do it as a win and we get it done.
It's like a core central part of this larger thing, because I think it rounds out everything else.
Can I ask a question before Trustee Vargas? So when you say that, I don't know if you're recording it somewhere, that's why I'm asking, but I hear community, like as an ongoing thing, community outreach, we do it, so we just continue doing it and becoming better at it. Capital planning, that's really just Mark just gave us a great Wilson Drive summary, and you were saying, I mean, I think that can just evolve, if it's not picked as a priority. And then document management, we don't talk a lot about that, but it's so internal.
this is my.
Okay, go ahead, I just wondered if there's a different column, that's all I'm saying, as you're writing it, like things that can happen anyways.
The camera's gonna end soon.
Okay, let's go,
Jen, just a minute. For capital planning.
Forming a column, okay.
Cameras on.
Great.
Okay, trustee Bachler.
All right, to go back to the wins, I don't want us to lose sight of some of the proclamations, resolutions, et cetera, while we have all these other things too. Those are important for the community, they're important to shape and kind of support a lot of what we're discussing here. I absolutely think transportation/parking is imperative, and I also agree with many others who have said that we have to look at this comprehensively. Okay, overnight parking isn't just parking, it's also community development, it's also affordability of housing and stuff like that. More than, 52-53% of our residents rent here. And they don't have the parking ability that those that own homes here have. So we can't punish the renters at the cost of, but I know we also have to look at the tickets and the fines, and there's a lot that involves it, so we need to do something about it, is my point. Legislation and lobbying, this is one of the reasons that we have a lot of the shortfalls in budgets and everything like that, is the state of Wisconsin's laws. So I would agree, I would completely support a residential committee similar to what President Rozak said for a budget, but involving legislative action at the state and national level, either in tandem with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities lobbying efforts in which I participate, and the National League of Cities, or even other areas. I mean, you can join any variety of organizations and whatnot, but that committee can decide and determine the best practices. But, and decriminalization of marijuana, I'm not saying legalization, but they can work on that too, if it were a lobbying and resident legislative committee. But that ties in, and I know it sounds like frivolous, but it really is a public safety issue, and it's also a discriminatory issue, and it falls under the HRC and so many different things. And just like a lot of them, I'm speaking really quickly because we don't have much time, but a lot of these things are overlapping, or Venn diagrams would be just robust with colors. There are a lot of things that we, in the municipality, as you said before, we have initiatives that don't necessarily need to be done, and maybe the residential committees would like to do them. For example, the Marketing and Communications Committee could pursue the standing column and the ripples as part of their amplification of messaging. That's not something that would have to be on staff to go investigate and spend this amount of time. It's like, hey, Marketing Committee, we think this is important. Also, focus on education regarding economic and community development. That those materials, that could be a CDA initiative if they so chose to take it up, or a bid, or et cetera, or the budget committee if that were created. Then we also have, of course, the environment sustainability. There are action plans and other, materials already formed by the conservation committee, the parks committee, et cetera. But of course, we'd all like to see those, I imagine, kind of coalesce somehow. Perhaps those committees will work more together as they started. And then pursuing the grant money for water initiatives, et cetera, that overlaps with the environmental with a lot of the things that have been mentioned here. Health and wellness is something that in the past we've discussed. We haven't really brought it up much in this village, but that goes also to budget and finance, and how healthy our employees are here in the village will determine how much, the insurance premiums, et cetera. So it's all holistic. And I don't know if that's something that we could work with, what is it, not the Health and Wellness Committee at the school district, but there was a committee at one point that dealt with a lot of these things. I'm not sure if they're still in existence. So, around that is a variety of community building initiatives. And also this also ties in with the local board and environmental movement, which is also sustained or supported, let's just say, by I'm just bringing up chickens and shore because it's been brought up to me many times that I supported it in the past before I was on the board. But that would be something that if, the Conservation Committee wanted to look at, or any other, great. If they don't, we probably don't have the staff resources to come up with something like that. I know I have a minute left. And economic, community, and business development, liquor licenses. It's imperative, you guys. Decriminalization of marijuana, oops, that came up again, that I have under the HRC here for some reason. And then review our duplex conversion and other loan programs, which I think is something, I know as a former 5-year member of the CDA, that is something that we did look at, and I think it's time to look at it again. And perhaps I'd like to understand more why we have the duplex conversion program. Does it fit in with, best practices as far as a municipality? Do we want fewer duplexes? Does it make sense as far as our business community? Does it make sense for our tax base? I'd love to understand the justification. And regarding the rest, I think everyone here has brought up some really great points tonight. And I don't think that, it would be great to, I like this organization as well. And I'd like to continue the discussion when we have time, but I'm done. 5 minutes.
On the I wanted to say that, I just wanted to clarify one quick thing.
Yep.
When you were talking about the housing the duplex, where does that fit in your mind? Is that a separate standalone? Is that?
No, that would be the loan program. Let's see, economic development, I guess. But it's more of a,
Is that maybe under
Not under
study and policy?
You're talking about the loan program?
yeah.
It falls under conservation, it falls under housing, which would be like that local market study for housing and commercial. It falls under CDA.
Yeah.
It's about 3 things that fall under CDA.
Okay. So, thank you for just being open and sharing. What I captured here is just some of the key buckets. Again, these aren't all of the buckets. I think there probably are initiatives we heard last week that fall inside of these. And I think it gives us an opportunity to bucket these even further. But some of the big ones, just to kind of point out the ones that I just checkmarked: transportation, more comprehensive study around parking and traffic, and that seems like something to tackle, but some notes here around other things that could be started.
Study and policy. But anyway.
Studying policy and plan is what I heard, right? Did you want to clarify something just so that
Well,
I can?
that's kind of what
Say, what did you say?
study, she says it's more of a study, but policy, planning,
Yeah,
etc.
comprehensive plan, study and plan.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
No,
It's
that's okay.
circulation analysis, basically, it's
Mhm.
a traffic study. For transportation plan, I guess.
Environmental restoration, and just some notes on some individual items that were probably more high priority to start right away. Budgeting, certainly a big one. And then some, economic development was certainly hit on, board organization, TIP policy, understanding, does the study come first? Do we have TIP policy? And then the HRC piece, recognizing diversity. What, how do we begin training? Are we even ready to start implementing training? What does that look like? So kind of that overall study, when does that begin? Anything that I missed as far as larger buckets, if we were to look at it in this fashion.
We don't have a public safety one.
Let's see.
There wasn't any on the board, but I just don't know if it'll come up in the next discussion.
And then I want to move back to you, President Rozek, just around quick wins, things we can be doing that are integrated into just the community outreach. You started to mention capital planning, the fireside chat. There was one other that I wanted to make sure to capture from you.
Internal document, it's document management. I mean, there's just some, cleanup in ordinances and some document management, and whether that means software or not, I don't even know. But that would be like your open records thing. I mean, that's all I just feel like that's your internal stuff that doesn't get sexy and nobody really cares on, But that we've, gone for a long time without a good document management system. So I think that's just a bucket, I don't know what to call it, but.
Okay. So just capture this bucket as, could these be parallel efforts? Recognizing that they do take effort and time, but these are things that we can be doing along the way as we start doing this. And not to say that's what we're going to do, but are these items that would fall in a parallel track?
Budget.
Would that be fair?
What do you think about capital planning, Trustee Menta? Because I know it was your proposal, but I feel like if we don't choose it as the priority, it can happen. Is that right? I mean, you explained it very well. It doesn't sound like it's out of the ordinary. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, well, certainly something that could happen. I mean, I don't know if we have to, as a board, say we want it, we want the budget to look like this. And I would think there would be some back and forth, you know.
Okay.
So, I want to just pause and check the time. We are at 10:15. How much time do we have on the recorder? I think you sensitive to that too.
It's done.
It's,
Oh, we're off.
so, that is.
I love chickens.
Are we serving or raising?
Barbecue next year.
There's a
tables right there, I
There's a
might.
motion on the floor to adjourn.
I was kind of joking.
Are you sure? Okay, let me know. Okay, continue on.
Are we able to proceed? I just want to,
Well, I mean, what do we have left?
so the next on the agenda, I want to discuss process for prioritization. Because we are waiting on some information. I know Rebecca did share some of the 5 like bigger fish. Could we identify